And we'll be loading the PowerPoint up now. And we'll begin with our session on collaborating with community colleges. During today's forum, we are going to be covering why it's important to collaborate with community colleges, ideas on collaborating with community colleges, some steps to successfully collaborate with the community college, and then I'm going to highlight the experience of my adult school and our community college collaboration with Los Angeles Valley College. And then there will be time for questions and answers at the end. And then we will also have time during the session where you will be able to actually use the chatting pods to actually have an opportunity to interact with each other and myself throughout the session this afternoon. And with that, I will get started. So as I said, we're going to start off talking about the importance of collaborating with community colleges. And I've used CC throughout the presentation to represent community colleges. But I really want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and understands that education reform right now today is focusing on post-secondary transitions as one of the main areas for reform. And that's happening for a lot of different reasons, but two of the biggest reasons that we want to align ourselves with this new reform focus on post-secondary transitions are because we want to make sure that our programs and our students are contributing to a better prepared workforce and that we are helping our students meet their educational goals. In terms of the workforce, recently as last year, the president had a report on jobs of tomorrow. And in that report, they said that of the fastest growing jobs, 2/3 of those jobs will require a post-secondary degree. The education and skills required for the workforce are increasing, and we need to make sure that we are preparing our students for not only finishing our programs, but for transitioning to the next step at the post-secondary level. And in terms of helping our students meet the goal, in California, looking at our 09-10 student outcome data, we had almost 6,000 learners who had a goal of entering post-secondary education. And while that number sounds maybe like a small number, understand that there are many more who might have that as a goal if we at our programs focused on post-secondary transitions and making that option available to the over 25,000 students across the state who receive their GED and high school diploma. It is really important for you as the administrators to know what your student goals are, the job market, and the goals of your local community college. And with that, there's some questions that you might want to ask as we're going through this presentation, and then of course when we're done to follow up on. But you want to know how many of your students had a goal of entering post-secondary training. And was their goal, if they had that, to enter a 2-year or a 4-year degree program? Or was it just to enter post-secondary training for job training? You also want to know what's going on in your community in terms of the labor market needs and demands. What are the current and future jobs where you are and where you provide services, your entire service area? And then you need to know a little bit about the community colleges that are near you so that you can partner with them. The community colleges, just like our programs, have a mission and they have goals and they have efforts that they are focusing on. And you need to ask the question of what those are and find out what those goals are and what their needs are. What are some other questions that you should be asking? I am going to give you time to think about some of the things that you might already know and some other questions that you might ask. The next slide will provide you with the ability to think about what you already know. And I'm going to give you a moment now to actually write some thoughts out in response to those questions. So what do you already know? What % of your students want to enter post-secondary training? What are the labor demands in your area? Do you know already where you go to find that out? Is the community college in a growth mode? All right, and I'll give you about 30 seconds to finish typing your thoughts. I'm seeing thoughts on the response slide, and I'm seeing responses also on the chat pod. If you can put them on the response slide, then as we are saving this presentation and the feedback and comments, we can actually refer back to it all together in one place. Good. All right. Thank you for sharing some things that you already know in terms of the needs of your programs, what the students' concerns are, how the community colleges want to work with you to transition students, what the CTE demands are, and helping to get your students feeling as if they are able to address the barriers to attend community colleges. This presentation will help you with some of the areas there that you've listed as things that you already know and want to find out, or that you already know. And then we're also going to have an opportunity for you to share what you want to find out. So you shared in the last slide what you know. Now I'd like to know some things you'd like to find out that you don't know already and that you are wanting to get the answers to help your students. And you'll again have another couple of minutes. So you want to find out more about financial support and financial aid. Good. And articulation agreements. Mm-hmm. These are great, great questions. Good. I am going to hopefully be able to give you in this session an overview of how you can collaborate with the community college and some things that have worked for my program. And then at the end, when we have the time for question and answers at the end, I hope that I will be able to also share some responses to some of the questions here on this slide number 6, because we won't get into details on all of these during the presentation today, but they are great questions, and I want to leave you with some thoughts that might help in some of those areas. All right. Good. Okay. All right. I'm going to move us on because there's obviously a broad area of things that we want to find out about collaborating with community colleges. I've taken some notes from the 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 information that you've typed into the response slide, and again, I will try and go through some of those questions at the end and see if I can answer them more directly. Some of the presentation addresses it, but a lot of those are specific, and I want to try and get those addressed for you. So as we move on, we're going to talk about some ideas for collaborating. And I had also wanted you to take some time to think about ideas for collaborating with community colleges, but I saw a lot of your ideas that you have for collaborating in the last slide in terms of things you want to find out about bridge programs, about financial aid, and articulation agreements as some areas in which we can collaborate with community colleges. So in the interest of time and really wanting to ensure that there's an opportunity towards the end to get back to your thoughts on slide 6, I'm going to have you only have about a short period of time to respond to this slide, and not as much as we've had in the last ones. And I know that you are quickly typing and that these responses are going rather quickly, but please know that, again, participating in this session means that you will have access to all the information that we're typing here. And hopefully you are seeing ideas from each other that will be useful in collaborating with community colleges. I'm seeing some that we are doing too. Good. Okay, so some of the ideas that I wanted to share with you in terms of collaborating with community colleges. Can you still hear me? All right, so some of the ideas that I have in terms of collaborating with community colleges include dual or joint enrollment, advanced placement programs, course alignment and curriculum coordination, planning together on academic and social preparation, sharing resources including faculty and facilities, improving communication, having bridge classes, and a lot of the ideas that you shared were also great ideas for collaborating with the community colleges. Tours, having the community colleges do presentations at your school on how-tos, having them at the college and career fair, having them be on your advisory committee. These are all great ideas and will help you as we are going through this slide and with ideas later and after this that will be useful for you with collaborating with community colleges. Just some background information in case you aren't familiar with some of the ideas that were just shared. Dual enrollment or joint enrollment is, of course, the ability to have your students at the adult school taking classes with your school and the adult school and the community college at the same time. And these are classes that can be offered outside of the normal class schedule, or they can be dual and joint enrollment classes that are classes where the students receive credit for both the adult school and the community college. And in this case, they can be offered at the adult school, at the community college, or any place that you feel it would be helpful for your students. With the advanced placement programs, these are programs where your students are receiving college credit while they are taking those classes as well. They can complete an AP advanced placement program where historically you would see these are classes that are offered for gifted students, but we're seeing it happen more and more now with career tech education classes. And so if your program is one that is strong in the CTE area, you might be able to indeed have an advanced placement program through an articulation agreement that you establish where your students would get credit, advanced credit for the classes they took at your program as they transition to post-secondary. Cross-curricular coordination and course alignment are also ways in which you can partner with the community college. And this way, as we're working with our CTE programs, it's particularly important because we need to have a pathway that leads from secondary education to post-secondary education. And in these cases, you would be able to establish articulation agreements, which vary from community college to community college and from district to district, but they can be as simple as a one-page agreement establishing classes that you will have that align with the community college classes, or a very formal agreement that establishes pre and post assessment criteria, entry criteria, exit criteria, all the skills that need to be mastered, and outlines in depth what will be taught at both levels for the secondary and the post-secondary, so that the students have a very clear career path as they're making their transition. So that's another area in which you can have collaboration with the community college that I've seen successfully. Another area that hit on some of the ideas that you shared is actually having advanced academic and social preparation established with the community college. And by this I mean that you would work to identify students at your school, and this was something that I saw typed out in the response slides earlier, but identifying those students who have transitioning to post-secondary education as a goal, and then working with those students to target specific outreach efforts to help them transition. Some of that might include visits and tours to the community college, which again was one of the ideas that one of you identified as a way to work with the community college earlier. It can be working on joint staff development with the community college so that our adult school teachers know some of the academic skills that will be needed for students to succeed at the community college level, and they are able to incorporate that level of training and skills into their class as much as possible. It can be creating a bridge program or test preparation program. It can be also having the community college come out and do presentations. Financial aid was one of the concerns that I saw mentioned quite a bit in one of the response slides. And this can be an opportunity to do workshops on the application process and how to get funding for college. And it can also be one of the ideas that I've seen happen is actually having adult school alumni who transition to community college come and share their experience. And this is really a great way for those students who are thinking, I'm not good enough to go to college or to transition to the post-secondary, to hear from students who've had a similar experience to themselves about what their transition process was like and how they made it successful. So that's another area that we can partner with the community colleges on. Sharing resources. This is an area that I think often we might not really focus on because we see ourselves as so separate. But in understanding that there are a lot of things that we have in common with the community college, and that we often have resources that they would like to utilize, or they have resources that we would like to utilize. Once you have begun establishing a relationship with the community college, you can consider sharing resources for classes. If you have a class at your school where the community college is hosting it, you can share materials, equipment, facilities in that way. You can share counselors and instructors. And my scenario, in the case that I'm going to be sharing with you later, we actually had the counselors from the community colleges on our campus working with our students so that they could more successfully transition and actually teaching them in classes. And again, you can offer classes of the community college on your adult school campus for your students to help them transition. Lastly, one of the other ways that you can collaborate is working to establish, and this says interinstitutional communication, but what this really means is strengthening your relationship with the community college, making sure that there is ongoing communication between the administrators of the adult school and of the community college, that you have taken the time to put out all the effort needed to make sure the community college knows who you are and that you have correctly identified a point of contact at the community college who will be able to help you further your goals on meeting your student goals. So some ideas to do this might include having a community college representative on your advisory committee, and I saw that on several of the ideas that were posted for how we can work with the community college. And one of the other ideas that I saw posted was actually having the adult school person attend advisory committee meetings of the community college and be connected with their advisory groups. And this is very helpful because they start to see your faith and your desire to support their needs and their committees. And you can do this as both an administrator from your adult school, or you can do this as a concerned community member who wants to know how the community college is growing and transitioning and what the plans are in the future. Another way that you can improve the communication and improve and strengthen the relationship is to actually share information on your students with the community college. And I don't mean individual information per se. I know we have privacy requirements that we have to follow. But in aggregate form, you could share what your student outcome data looks like. You can share what your student goals are. You can share how many of your students have gotten a high school diploma or GED who are potential students that the community college might see. You can do joint trainings and workshops, and you can have regular ongoing, maybe monthly meetings with the point of contact that you identify as the appropriate one to work with. And you can talk about aligning your calendars. You can talk about legislation, curriculum, any subjects, any items that come up that you feel at the time is needed to work successfully with the community college. But the real focus on this slide and this information is to ask that you take the time to build and establish the relationship with an individual or individuals at the community college that you want to work with. And then finally, bridge classes. And bridge classes, this is not really anything new, but it's finding the right way to establish your bridge classes. I saw on some of the comments that you shared that you want to have classes that can transition your students successfully. Well, the way to do that is to, again, have that relationship established with the community college to know from their perspective what it will take for your students to be successful in transitioning. And then designing classes specifically around those needs. You want your students to be successful once they get there. You don't want them to flounder. And the only way to do that is not by offering what we think we know, but by finding out specifically what it is that will be asked of them at the community college level. This may include academic as well as social skills. It might include information on how to address the many barriers that our students come across with childcare, with working, with family. All of that can be incorporated into your bridge class. And in an ideal scenario, this class would be offered by both the adult school and the community college together. And those teaching it would be from the community college and the adult school together. And again, in an ideal situation, the bridge class is at your adult school before they transition, and it might finish at the community college as a part of the bridge class. Their last few classes might be on site where the partnership is for this bridge class. Just some ideas and thoughts as we think about ways in which we can collaborate with the community college, and again, understanding why it is that we need to be collaborating with the community college. I know I've spent a good amount of time speaking just now, and so I'm going to give you a moment to think about additional ideas that might have been triggered from any of the information that was shared above. And you will have the opportunity to also include in this response slide thoughts and ideas that were triggered from that last set of slides. Please take a moment. Great. These are great ideas and great thoughts. Thank you for sharing these. Good. And again, as you are typing your thoughts down, I'm going to respond to some of them as I'm seeing them with the answers that I have from my experience, but know that to get the most direct answers, you're going to need to seek out that one point of contact or points of contact that you establish at the community college to help you really find out specifically what they need. In terms of when to have the classes, for bridge classes, if you do those, in my experience, the best time to do them is the last semester before your students are going to be graduating. And so in my experience, we've always had a spring graduation, and so we've offered a bridge class the spring semester for those students who might have finished early. Maybe they finished in March or they finished in February, but we didn't want to lose them before the end of the school year. So the bridge class provided an excellent opportunity for those students in terms of timing. And then other ideas in terms of ongoing support with the community college, yes, you absolutely can work with them to do joint staff development and finding out what it is that they need in terms of the minimum skill level for your students to be successful. Good. Getting that sense of readiness will really help to know what it is that they want from us. All right. Thank you again for typing in your thoughts and sharing your feedback. And this is, I appreciate your feedback here that this is very rich, but your ideas that you are providing are also great, rich ideas that we can all use to help grow and establish our partnerships with the community college. Moving on. We're going to talk now about some steps to successfully collaborate with the community college that you can take on as an administrator directly. And I'm going to start by speaking about our governing boards and the governing boards of the community college. To collaborate, this can't be something that you just do internally without anyone else's approval or okay. If you are really going to establish strong relationships with the community college and have officially recognized partnerships or articulation agreements, they're going to have to go to your board as well as the board of the community college. And you're going to want to find examples of articulation agreements or of partnership agreements that have been in place with the community college with other adult schools. In my example, our agreement, we had both an articulation agreement in our CTE area established for our culinary program, but we also had a financial agreement established for offering the bridge classes and for hosting other community college classes that our students could transition to on my campus. And in both cases, the board had to support it for it to happen. As the administrator of the adult school, you are also going to need to take on the responsibility for initiating that dialogue and maintaining that communication. Participating in this forum is a good start, but following this, a next step would be to find out who would best be your point of contact. In my case, the point of contact that I worked with the community colleges was through the ACES programs. And those are programs that most community colleges have to work with the secondary schools to offer programs and classes for secondary students. And I was able to work with the community college to help them see the value of having a similar program with the adult school. And so my point of contact was the dean in that department. And you will find out from your contacts once you reach out who that is that you need to work with. And then making sure that you have discussions early on about what the goals and expected outcomes would be from this collaboration. It can't just be because I want to. It has to be because the community college wants to as well. So if you are working with them, you want to identify in advance some of the reasons that you could see that they would want to work with you. So that's one of the ways that you can start helping them to understand why they want to successfully collaborate with you. You might also think about how you can have your staff participate on developing articulation agreements. It's a lot of work to do an articulation agreement, and it takes a lot of time. And in most cases, it's done teacher to teacher. And so you will have to work with them to make sure that they are recognized for their efforts and their time in establishing the articulation agreements with the community college staff. And then again, identifying clearly what the results would be from the articulation agreement so that everyone is on board, and then reviewing that agreement annually and making any updates or changes that are needed. I'm going to now share quickly my experience in collaborating with LA Valley College. And this collaboration highlights dual enrollment. It highlights sharing resources, faculty, and facilities, and it highlights bridge classes. And at the beginning of, or earlier in this presentation, I went through a number of ideas that you can collaborate. This will just be spending time on these areas, and it will hopefully show you how you can move from theory to reality when you are collaborating with the community college. So quickly about the Burbank Adult School. The Burbank Adult School is over 80 years old right now, and it is a medium-sized program in Burbank, which is Media City, and it is really a blue-collar town where going to college isn't always the expectation of graduates and students. In this adult school, we serve 6,000 students annually. Their average age is about 37. ESL and CT are the largest programs, and then we have 60 graduates a year. And with that, when I first arrived there, one of the first goals was to promote a college-going culture and to really have students know that they were eligible and could go to college, and that their education did not stop with Burbank Adult School. And so creating a college-going culture through empowering them to see the possibilities by working with the counselors, by having the counselors come out from the community college to work with them, has really ensured that most of our students who graduate go on to post-secondary education after graduating. LA Valley College is one of the 9 community colleges in the Los Angeles Community College District, and they serve about 22,000 students a year. They have 3 areas: their credit area, their non-credit area, and then not for credit. And we have worked with them in both their credit and non-credit area. Their funding is really been cut quite a bit, so they are now trying to, as we are, maintain their services and their mission. And their mission, one of their missions that they are focusing on now, is to be the location for students to come when they are not yet ready for a 4-year degree program, but are wanting to transition to that. And so they have been spending a lot of effort on preparing their students to transition to 4-year college programs. And we worked with them on the ACE program, which I mentioned earlier is a program that was established for high school students at the secondary level to help them transition to post-secondary. We started working with Valley College in 2000, and when we started working with them, we focused on creating a course for our employees in the district who needed to get their early childhood education units established or completed in our child care program. They had to complete 3 classes, and we worked with LA Valley College to offer those classes through the adult school so that not only district employees could take the classes, but adult school students as well. Since that time, we have continued to offer child development classes, and we have expanded the classes that we've offered with Valley College to include psychology classes, which we have as one of our electives for the high school diploma program. And so this is an example where a student can be dual enrolled and get credit for both programs. We have offered as many as 6 classes with Valley College at our adult school, and with budget cuts, we are currently this semester not offering any classes with them, but we have at different times offered as many as 6. The class that I want to highlight is the personal development classes that we've offered. And these are what you would term bridge classes. And we established these classes with the counselors at the adult school and the counselors at Valley College with the goal of introducing the adult school students to higher education, with showing the students how they could be successful as a community college student, and with providing a safe environment where they could bridge successfully to community college or to post-secondary education. And by safe, I mean that we offered the classes at our campus, so it provided really a place where they were familiar with going to school anyway to take their community college class. Our goal with the professional or personal development classes was to really help set the mind of our adult school students that they could do the work successfully of the post-secondary school. We offered 11 classes in the spring of 2007, and we had 219 students enrolled in all of the classes that we had. Of those, 27% were Burbank Adult School students, and in the most recent year with personal development classes, we've had 40% of those students be Burbank Adult School students. One of the things that we didn't do when we were establishing the classes was to ask the community college to not allow any other students in it. We wanted the classes to be successful classes for our students at the adult school, but if they had other students who weren't yet ready or weren't sure yet either, to offer them the ability through their counselors to be directed to Burbank Adult School to take their personal development classes with us. And so it has worked for both the benefit of the adult school and the community college. As we talked earlier, there are many steps for successfully collaborating with the community college. And in our case, we started with understanding that while there needs to be some formality, in the beginning we did not have the program formally organized. It was very loosely planned and based on the needs that were happening at that given moment in time. But while it was not formal in the beginning, we did quickly realize we needed to formally establish agreements with the community college so that both parties would feel that they had something to rely on in terms of what we would be offering each other. And so we actually had a full blown out agreement where we said what the adult school would do and what we would offer in terms of sharing our facility and sharing our equipment and materials, and what the community college would offer in terms of providing instructors, in terms of allowing our students to enroll early into the classes over other students, in terms of actually paying. We charge a facility fee. We weren't able to waive that, but we were able to reduce that. And so we were able to include all of this in the formalized agreement that we had with LA Valley College. And we identified what our goals were. And in an earlier slide, I shared that it was important to make sure that you have goals established that you each are aware of. And for the adult school, our goal was to make sure that our students had exposure to higher education, knew they could make it in a known environment. And for the community college, they were looking for ways to grow and expand, and they were looking for satellite locations. And so we were a satellite location for them. We became a satellite site for the community college by offering up to 6 courses at one point during the year, 6 different courses. Some of the things that made this work is that we did share resources. We realized that funding was limited for both of us, so how could we help work together? And so we worked on mutually marketing the classes. The classes were in our schedule and on our website, as well as on the community college's schedule and on their website. We had their counselors on our campus working with our students, registering our students, preparing them, and trying to be as efficient as possible. One of the other things that made it work is that we made it easy for students. They could apply at the adult school, they could register online, but they did not have to go to the community college to register for classes. So it made it convenient for them. And then earlier I had mentioned that we timed the personal development classes to meet the timing of our spring semester of our graduates. And we recruited students for the classes based on their goals. So again, you need to know what your students' goals are so that you can successfully identify who should be in these classes. And we also realized that we were not going to worry about being territorial and not going to focus on the competitive nature that sometimes happens with the adult school and the community college. We realized that we had a shared population, and so we focused on offering classes that Burbank Adult School didn't offer, but that the community college did offer so that we could serve our students together. It was a focus on selecting classes that would transition them from the high school program and focusing on the students' needs and goals and not our territorialness. So with that, I know that we only have a few minutes left, and I rushed through the highlights of the example with my adult school so that we could have some time now to actually reflect upon and try and answer some of the questions that you have. So again, there is a chat pod there for you to type in thoughts and questions, and I will try and respond to those as much as I can in the next few minutes. What feedback did the students have on the course content? The adult school students who took classes with the community college felt that it was helpful, and that because the personal development class was taught by one of the counselors from Valley College, that they really knew that they were getting what would help them be successful. So we didn't formally survey them. I wish that we would have, but I did pop into the class on several occasions and have had the students come by my office and share, thank you for this class, it helped me. But a good idea would be to formally survey students who took those classes. Hours, length, days, months for the personal development class. We had 3 different personal development classes. One of the personal development classes met once a week. I believe it was for 3 hours, and the class was aligned with the community college's schedule and our schedule. So they had typically, I believe it was a 16-week semester, but because we started the classes later than they started, we actually only had, in one case for the PD classes, it met, I think, 13 times instead of 16. And because the community college has to have so many minutes of time that they meet, they actually extended the class a little bit longer each of those sessions to meet our schedule and their required time that they had to meet. The items covered in the personal development class, we had 3 different ones, and one of the personal development classes was on how to be successful in the community college, and it covered things such as what classes that you should take at the secondary level, what skills will be required for transitioning to the secondary level, how to sign up for courses at the community college and what courses you should take as you begin, and areas in that area was the focus of that one. And I believe that was the community or the personal development classes that we had. 2 of them were for 1 unit and 1 was for 3 units. The 3-unit class that we had, or 3-credit class that we had, focused on career choices and helping the students identify the classes that they would take based on their career choices. So they did career assessments in that class, and then they did related field trips from the adult school to the community college, where they were actually able to see the departments that would help them focus on that career area. Those are some of the highlights. Of course, you can look up the personal development classes because the core of the curriculum remained the same as what the community college wanted to offer, and you can find that at the LA Valley College website and look up their personal development classes 1, 4, and 11. Again, that's personal development 1, personal development 4, and personal development 11, to see what those classes actually have in terms of the actual course description. Were there any high school students that attended? No, we did not have any regular high school students attending, but we would not have prohibited that if they would have registered for the class directly, but there weren't any of our concurrent students in it. Was there a way to capture data as the future successful students who went on? That would be something that we should begin to look at, and I would think that in establishing the relationships of sharing student outcome data, one of the challenges that the community colleges have is on tracking student data. But if we work on that relationship early with them and identify what the goals are and that we want to look at the trends over the next 4 years with them, they would probably be able to help us find a way to identify and track our students who transition and be able to see their success. We work strictly with the adult high school students and GED students. We did not do coordination in this model with the ESL programs, but you can. It's not limited. We just wanted to make sure that these students were ready. I am going to probably finish my comments there. I know that there are other questions, but we are at the agreed upon time, and I know that we want to stick as closely as we can to that. It's 3:33 now. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. I hope that I answered some of your questions related to the community college and collaborating with the community college in ways that you can do that. And thank you for your time. The last slide has on it my contact information. And so if you
thank you. This is Marianne.
really
Sharice,
need
thank you
to
so
get
much.
some
That
other
was
thoughts
a
and
very, very thorough
feedback
and
from
informative
this
presentation.
presentation that I
And I'm
can
seeing
help
a
you
lot
with,
of thank
please
yous
feel free to
come up from the group in
email
the chat
me,
pod. So
email me
on behalf
any
of
of those questions that
CalPro
you
and
have,
the
and I will
group, if
try
I
my
may,
best to
thank you so
respond to
much for
them
a really
by
terrific
the end of this
presentation,
week,
Sharice.
if not by the end of today.
You're
And
welcome.
I thank you
Okay,
very
thank you,
much again
everybody.
for your
And this
time.
session has been recorded. You'll receive a link to the recording, which will include the presentation, the audio component, and the content of the chat pod. So once again, thanks, everybody, and especially you, Sharice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.